Hello everybody. If you want to read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. Short story 205, The Missing Necklace. Rain lashed against the windowpanes, the wind howling like a lonely wolf. Inside the cosy café, Sarah huddled deeper into her scarf, sipping her lukewarm tea. It was supposed to be a relaxing evening catching up with her friend, Emily, but Emily was nowhere to be seen. Running late, perhaps, Sarah muttered to herself, checking her phone again. No new messages. An uneasiness settled in her stomach. Emily was always punctual, sometimes annoyingly so. So 10 minutes turned into 20, then 30. Still no Emily. Suddenly the cafe door burst open. A young man drenched from head to toe, panting heavily. It was Tom, Emily's younger brother. Relief washed over Sarah momentarily. "Sarah," Tom gasped, collapsing into the chair opposite her. "Have you seen Emily?" "No," Sarah said, her heart sinking. "I was waiting for her, but she never showed up." "That's strange," Tom said, his voice trembling. "She called me earlier in a panic. She said she needed my help. Something about a stolen necklace." Sarah's eyes widened. Emily had a beautiful antique necklace, a family heirloom. Stolen? What necklace? "Her grandmother's," Tom explained, catching his breath. Emily was supposed to meet someone at the park this evening to sell it. She needed the money for... He hesitated. Let's just say she was in a bit of trouble. Sarah's mind raced. The park? In this weather? Tom nodded, a worried frown creasing his forehead. She said it couldn't wait, said the buyer was impatient. A terrible feeling gnawed at Sarah. The deserted park, the shady deal, Emily's frantic call, it all painted a grim picture. "We need to find her," she declared, her voice firm. Tom looked at her, surprised. "You'll come with me?" "Of course," Sarah said, standing up. "We can't wait here." They dashed out into the storm. Sarah grabbed an umbrella on her way out. The park, normally bustling with life, was deserted. The wind whipped through the bare branches of the trees, casting long, eerie shadows on the soaked ground. "Emily," Sarah called out, her voice barely audible over the howling wind. They searched frantically, following a path that led deeper into the darkness. Then Sarah spotted it, a crumpled figure laying by a large oak tree. It was Emily, unconscious, a nasty gash on her forehead. Her purse lay open beside her, the antique necklace missing. Panic surged through Sarah. "Emily!" she cried, rushing to her friend's side. Tom was behind her, his face pale. Sarah checked Emily's pulse, weak but there. Relief washed over her again, this time stronger. "She's alive," she told Tom, her voice shaky but hopeful. Tom helped her carry Emily to a nearby bench. Sarah fished out her phone, her fingers fumbling for a signal. Thankfully, a weak bar appeared. She dialed emergency services, her voice trembling as she explained the situation. As they waited for the ambulance, Tom explained what Emily had told him earlier. She was desperate for money, he said, his voice filled with concern. She owed someone a lot, some gambler she got mixed up with. The sound of sirens pierced the night. Sarah watched as the paramedics rushed to Emily, tending to her wounds. "She'll be okay," a paramedic assured her, loading up Emily onto a stretcher. "But she needs to be checked out at the hospital." With Emily on her way, Sarah and Tom stood under the dripping trees, the rain slowly turning to a drizzle. "What are we going to do about the necklace?" Tom asked, his voice barely a whisper. Sarah glanced at the shattered phone she held in her hand. "We'll find it, Tom," she said, her voice firm despite the fear gnawing at her. "We have to." The night was still young, and the mystery of the missing necklace had just begun. The following morning, Sarah sat in the sterile white hospital room, Emily bandaged but pale, asleep in the bed. Sarah recounted the previous night's events to a police officer, a young woman named Detective Jones. "So, you saw no one suspicious in the park?" Detective Jones asked, jotting down notes in a small pad. Sarah shook her head. "It was pouring rain. Everyone would have been hiding somewhere." "Did Emily mention the gambler's name?" "No," Sarah said, frustration tinging her voice. "She was just desperate." Detective Jones nodded, her gaze serious. "These types of situations rarely end well," she said gently. "Did Emily have any enemies, anyone who might have wanted to hurt her?" Sarah thought for a moment. "Not that I know of," she said. "Emily was kind to everyone, a bit naive sometimes, but did she keep any records of this gambler? A phone number, address?" Sarah searched her memory. "She might have," she said slowly. "She kept everything in a small notebook she carried with her." A flicker of hope sparked in Detective Jones's eyes. "Do you still have it, the notebook?" Sarah's stomach lurched. I don't know. It wasn't with her at the park." A heavy silence descended upon the room. Sarah felt a lump forming in her throat. Without that notebook, finding the thief or the gambler seemed impossible. "Don't worry," Detective Jones said, placing a reassuring hand on Sarah's arm. "We'll find it. We'll also canvass the park to see if anyone saw anything suspicious." As Detective Jones left the room, Emily stirred in the bed. Her eyes fluttered open, landing on Sarah's worried face. "What happened?" Emily mumbled, her voice hoarse. "Easy, Em," Sarah soothed, tucking the blanket around her friend. "You had a nasty fall. You're safe now at the hospital." Emily's brow furrowed. "The necklace, did they find it?" Sarah shook her head, her heart heavy. "No, Em, but the police are looking for it." A wave of guilt washed over Emily's face. "I'm so sorry, Sarah," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "I shouldn't have got involved with him." Sarah squeezed her friend's hands. "Don't worry about that now. You just focus on getting better, okay?" The hours ticked by. Tom arrived, relieved to see his sister recovering. Sarah, however, couldn't shake the feeling of urgency. The missing necklace was more than just a valuable heirloom. It was a clue, a thread that could lead them to the thief and maybe even the gambler. Later that evening, Sarah excused herself from Emily's room and found Tom sitting in the waiting area, his face etched with worry. "Look, Tom," Sarah said, her voice quiet but determined. "While Emily's asleep, we should check her apartment. Maybe the notebook is there." Tom hesitated. "Are you sure it's a good idea? What if there's someone looking for it?" Sarah understood his concern, but fear couldn't hold them back any longer. "We have to try something, Tom," she said. "Besides, the police will be looking for the thief too. It's a risk, but we can't just sit here and wait." Tom took a deep breath. "Okay," he finally agreed. "You're right, let's go." The rain had finally stopped, leaving behind a cool, damp night. Sarah and Tom reached Emily's apartment, a cosy studio on the outskirts of town. With a spare key borrowed from the building manager, they entered cautiously. The air inside was stale, untouched for what seemed like days. Sarah and Tom switched on the lights, revealing a messy living room. Papers were scattered on the coffee table, a half-eaten bowl of cereal on the counter. Their search began. They looked under the sofa cushions, behind bookshelves, even inside the fridge, a desperate hope. No notebook. Just as frustration threatened to engulf them, Sarah spotted a small velvet box tucked away in the back of Emily's jewellery drawer. Her heart pounded. Could it be? She carefully opened the box. Inside, nestled on a bed of white satin, lay a small, worn notebook. Relief washed over them like a warm wave. They had found it. Sarah held the notebook in her trembling hands, a sense of hope battling with trepidation. Perhaps within its pages lay the answer to unravelling this whole mess, but what dangers awaited them as they turned the corner? Venturing deep into the woods, the dilapidated cabin loomed before them, a silent sentinel guarding its secrets. A sense of foreboding hung heavy in the air, the rustling leaves whispering warnings in the wind. Would they find the necklace within those decaying walls, or would something far more sinister greet them on the other side of the creaking wooden door? Back in the sterile hospital room, Sarah and Tom huddled by the window, their afternoon sun casting long shadows across the floor. Emily, still weak but recovering, dozed peacefully in the bed. The small, worn notebook lay open on Sarah's lap, its pages filled with Emily's messy handwriting. With bated breath, they began deciphering the cryptic notes. Names, addresses, phone numbers, a tangled web of Emily's desperate attempts to pay off the gambler. One name stood out, Max Diamond. It was circled twice, underlined with a frantic scribble. Max Diamond, Tom muttered, a frown creasing his forehead. Never heard of him. Sounds like a bad guy in a movie, Sarah whispered, a shiver running down her spine. Further investigation revealed a phone number scrawled next to the name. Sarah's fingers hovered over her own phone, a wave of apprehension washing over her. Should they call it? Was it safe? We can't just ignore it, Tom said, his voice firm. Maybe this Max Diamond is the one who stole the necklace. Sarah took a deep breath. Okay, she said, her voice resolute. Let's do it. The dial tone buzzed in the quiet room. After an agonizing wait, a gruff voice answered. Yeah? Is this Max Diamond? Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper. Depends who's asking, the voice replied, laced with suspicion. This is Sarah, a friend of Emily's? Sarah continued, her voice gaining strength. We know you have something that belongs to her. A tense silence followed. Then the voice chuckled, a harsh, unpleasant sound. Tell Emily her little friend shouldn't be sticking her nose where it doesn't belong. The line went dead. Sarah stared at the phone, her heart pounding. They had gotten a reaction, but at what cost? He knows we're onto him, Tom said, his eyes wide with worry. What now? Sarah glanced at Emily, still peacefully sleeping. We can't involve her anymore, she said, her voice tight. We have to find another way. An idea sparked in Sarah's mind. The park, she said, her voice gaining conviction. Maybe there's something there, a clue we missed. Tom's eyebrows shot up. Go back to the park, in the middle of nowhere? We have to take a chance, Tom, Sarah said, her gaze resolute. We might find something that can lead us to Max Diamond and the necklace. Despite his reservations, Tom agreed. The following day they returned to the deserted park, the rain having washed away most traces of the previous night's events. Sarah and Tom meticulously traced their steps, searching for anything out of place. Suddenly Sarah spotted a glint of metal half buried in the mud beneath the oak tree. She knelt down, brushing away the dirt to reveal a small silver earring. It was the clasp from Emily's necklace, broken in two. Hope flared within them. This was a tangible lead, a proof of a struggle. Sarah tucked the clasp into her pocket and they continued their search, their eyes scanning every inch of the ground. Then Tom's sharp eyes caught sight of something unusual. A faint trail of tire tracks led away from the oak tree, disappearing into the thick undergrowth at the edge of the park. There, Tom exclaimed, pointing towards the tracks. Maybe that's where the thief went. Following the tracks was no easy feat. Thorns scratched at their clothes, branches whipped at their faces, but they pressed on, fueled by a growing sense of determination. The trail led them deeper into the woods, the sunlight barely penetrating the thick canopy of leaves. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the trees thinned out, revealing a clearing. In the centre stood a dilapidated old cabin, its windows boarded up, paint peeling from its walls. An unsettling feeling settled in Sarah's stomach. Do you think this is where the necklace is? Tom asked, his voice barely a whisper. Sarah didn't answer. Her gaze was fixed on the cabin, a knot of fear tightening in her chest. They had stumbled upon something more than just a stolen necklace. The question that hung in the air was terrifying. What had waited them inside? Sarah and Tom exchanged a worried glance. The dilapidated cabin exuded an unsettling aura, the silence broken only by the creaking of nearby branches. Taking a deep breath, Sarah reached out a hand, her fingers trembling slightly, and grasped the rusty handle. The door groaned in protest as it swung open, revealing a dark and dusty interior. A shaft of sunlight pierced through a broken window, illuminating a scene of disarray. Furniture lay overturned, cobwebs draped across forgotten corners. The air hung heavy with the smell of damp and decay. "We need to be careful," Tom whispered, his voice echoing in the stillness. He pulled out his phone, using its flashlight to illuminate the room. Sarah stepped cautiously inside, her heart hammering in her chest. The floorboards creaked ominously beneath their weight. They moved slowly, their eyes scanning the room for any sign of the necklace or the thief. In the corner, a glint of metal caught Sarah's eyes. She hurried over, her pulse quickening. It was the other half of the broken earring clasp. Relief washed over her momentarily, but the feeling was short-lived. A sudden noise from the back of the cabin made them jump. Tom's flashlight beam darted towards the source. A shadowy figure emerged from behind a dusty sheet draped over a large object. "Who's there?" Sarah called out, her voice trembling. The figure didn't answer, but slowly stepped forward, revealing a tall, gaunt man with a menacing scar etched across his cheek. He held a worn leather pouch in his hand, a cruel smile twisting his lips. "Well, well," he drawled, his voice raspy. "Looks like the little birdies came looking for their nest egg." Sarah's stomach lurched. This was Max Diamond. Fear battled with determination in her chest. They couldn't back down now. "Give us back the necklace," Tom demanded, his voice surprisingly steady. Max Diamond chuckled, a harsh, unpleasant sound. "The necklace? Funny you should mention that." He dangled the leather pouch in front of him. "But retrieving lost treasures comes at a price, wouldn't you agree?" Sarah and Tom exchanged a worried look. They were trapped. What did Max Diamond want from them? And how were they going to get out of this situation with the necklace and their lives intact? The shadows in the cabin seemed to deepen, the air thick with tension. The answer to their questions and their fate hung precariously in the balance. Sarah's mind raced. This wasn't about the necklace anymore. Their safety was at stake. "What do you want?" she asked, trying to sound calm. Max Diamond's smile widened. "Let's just say," he said, his gaze flickering between them, "I have a little proposition for you two." He gestured to the dusty object in the corner, something that requires a bit of discretion. Sarah's heart pounded. Discretion? What could he possibly be hiding? A glance at Tom confirmed his growing suspicion. They couldn't trust this man. Suddenly a loud bang resonated from outside. The cabin door flew open, revealing a police officer standing there, gun drawn. "Max Diamond," the officer called out, his voice stern, "you're under arrest." Relief flooded Sarah and Tom. They had been followed. Earlier, Tom had discreetly called the police after finding the tire tracks, hoping they might be able to track where they led. It was a risky gamble, but it had paid off. Max Diamond's face contorted into rage. He lunged for the leather pouch hanging from his belt, but the officer reacted swiftly, grabbing his wrist and forcing him to the ground. As the officer secured Max Diamond in handcuffs, he turned to Sarah and Tom. "We received a tip about suspicious activity here," he explained. "Thank you for your bravery in coming forward." Sarah and Tom exchanged a grateful smile. Their ordeal was over. With the police taking Max Diamond away, they retrieved the necklace from the pouch, a bittersweet victory. Later at the police station, they learned that Max Diamond was a wanted criminal, involved in a string of robberies. The object hidden under the sheet turned out to be stolen goods. Their tip had been crucial in his capture. As they walked out of the station, the setting sun cast a warm glow on the horizon. "Well, that was an adventure," Tom remarked, a hint of nervous chuckle in his voice. Sarah smiled weakly. "One we won't forget," she agreed. They had faced their fears, worked together, and emerged stronger. And while the experience had been terrifying, it had also forged a stronger bond between them. The stolen necklace, recovered in return to Emily, became a symbol of their courage and resourcefulness, a reminder of the night they faced a dangerous man and found the strength to fight back. Story written by Google Gemini AI. Image created by Copilot AI. To read all the stories in full, please go to www.steveuk.blog. Thank you. Hello, this is Steve. If you enjoyed the story, please would you take the time to leave a meaningful comment and click on the like icon. If you want to know when the next story has been uploaded, please click on the notify bell icon to be notified. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and tell your English learning friends so they can benefit too. Thank you.